My son, look for a kingdom worthy of yourself, for Macedonia is too small for you. You are standing on top of a wall. Below you, on the other side, is an entire city full of people who want you dead. Behind you, your army. 30,000 men who have followed you across deserts, over mountain ranges, through monsoons and 3 years of war, elephants and homesickness, is still scrambling to get ladders up. Men shout. Arrows hiss past your ears like angry whispers. And in approximately 4 seconds, you are going to do the single most reckless thing in the history of organized warfare. You are going to jump, not back, not down to safety. You are going to leap forward, off this wall, into the city below, alone, because the ladders are too slow and your blood is up, and somewhere deep in your brain, there is a voice. Maybe it's your mother's voice. Maybe it's Homer's. Maybe it's your own, telling you that you are not the kind of person who waits. So you jump. You land hard. The impact jolts through your knees, your spine, your teeth. Dust rises, and for one perfect, terrible second, you are standing inside an enemy city with nothing but a sword, a shield, and whatever is left of your reputation for being unkillable. The Mali warriors close in fast. You press your back against the wall, the same wall you just leaped over, and you fight. 3 men come at you. You cut one down. Another staggers back. Your shield catches a blow meant for your throat. You are fast, and you are trained, and you are Alexander, and for a few breathless minutes, that is enough. Then the arrow hits. It comes from your right. A large Indian longbow arrow, and it doesn't just graze you. It punches through your breastplate, slides between your ribs, and nicks your lung. You feel the air leave your chest. Not like breathing out, but like something being stolen. Your legs buckle. Your vision narrows. You go down, still swinging, still fighting, but down. Your men finally breach the wall. They pour over it in a fury. Not disciplined, just desperate. They see you on the ground with an arrow through your chest, and they believe you are dead. And what follows is not a battle. It is a reckoning. They kill everyone. Every man, woman, and child in that section of the city, because the army of Alexander does not process grief quietly. But you are not dead. Not yet. They carry you out on your shield, the way Greeks carry their fallen heroes. Someone breaks off the arrow shaft. A surgeon, if you can call a man with a knife and a prayer a surgeon, cuts the arrowhead from your chest, and the blood that pours out is dark. Your lung is punctured. You are 30 years old. You are 4,000 miles from home. And you are lying on your back in the Indian sun, staring up at a sky that looks exactly like every other sky you've ever seen, wondering if this is it. Wondering if you'll walk again, ride again, give speeches again. But something has shifted. The arrow didn't just pierce your lung, it punctured something deeper. That sense of invincibility you've carried since you were 10 years old. But to understand how you got here, bleeding, broken, impossibly far from the marble halls where you grew up, we need to go back, way back, to a boy, a horse, and a father who could never quite decide whether he loved you or feared you. Welcome, Nightlings. This is Huxley. If you like listening or falling asleep to real stories that carry you through history into the minds of those who shaped the world before us, then this is the place for you. Close your eyes and let's remember a life you haven't lived yet. Before we begin, I'm curious to know something simple. Where are you listening from, and what's the temperature there? Is it a biting cold winter, a tropical evening, a temperate afternoon, or something else entirely? Take a moment to set your phone face down and just let it be finished for tonight. Roll your shoulders up, back and down, then gently loosen your jaw and soften your forehead. Take a slow breath in through your nose and let it out even slower, like you're fogging a window. Now let your hands rest heavy, your eyes relax, and allow your body to sink into the bed. Nothing to do, nowhere to be as we drift into the ancient world of Alexander the Great. You arrive on July 21st, 356 BC in the royal palace at Pella, and you arrive screaming. This is not unusual. Babies scream, but you are screaming in a palace with floor mosaics depicting lion hunts and gods wrestling serpents, in a kingdom that most of southern Greece considers barely civilized. In a bedroom where your mother Olympias is already whispering to the midwives that a thunderbolt struck her womb on the night you were conceived. Your father Philip is not here. He is 300 miles away, besieging a city called Potidea, because your father is always besieging something. When the messenger reaches him with the news of your birth, 2 other messages arrive the same day. His general Parmenion has won a major battle, and his horse has won at the Olympic Games. 3 victories in one day. Philip is delighted. The gods, he believes, are smiling. And here's the thing no one told you, or anyone else for that matter. Philip's delight is genuine, but it is also strategic. He is a man who sees everything, including his own children, through the lens of advantage. You are his heir. You are also his asset. And one day, when you are old enough to understand the difference, that distinction will break something between you that never fully heals. But that's later. Right now, you are a baby in a palace, and the palace is extraordinary. Pella is not what southern Greeks imagine when they think of Macedonia. They picture goat herders and mud huts and men who drink their wine straight, which, to be fair, is accurate on the wine front. Macedonians do not dilute their wine with water the way Athenians do, and they consider this a point of pride, not a character flaw. But Pella itself is a revelation. The palace complex sprawls across a low hill overlooking a wide plain. There are columned courtyards open to the sky, banquet halls large enough to host 300 guests reclining on couches, gardens thick with laurel and myrtle, and the mosaics are breathtaking. Tiny stones fitted together with obsessive precision, depicting Dionysus riding a panther, hunters grappling with a stag, figures from myth, frozen mid-struggle in colored pebble and glass. You will grow up walking on art. Literally, every day, your small feet will cross images of gods and heroes, and something about that will seep into you in ways you can't articulate. The floor of your childhood is a gallery of legends. The palace also has a sophisticated sewer system and a municipal water supply, which, if we're being honest, puts Pella ahead of several European capitals that won't exist for another 2,000 years. But the gleaming infrastructure hides something uglier. The Macedonian court is, by every surviving account, a snake pit. Royal children are sometimes murdered by rivals to the throne. Wives scheme against each other. Generals jockey for influence, with a king who rewards loyalty and punishes disloyalty with roughly the same enthusiasm. You are growing up in the most beautiful, most dangerous nursery in the ancient world. You learn to read a room before you learn to read a scroll. Your mother, Olympias, is the daughter of the king of Epirus. She is fierce, intelligent, jealous, and utterly devoted to you, in that specific, suffocating way that produces either greatness or therapy. She claims descent from Achilles on her mother's side. She participates in ecstatic religious rituals involving snakes, actual snakes, live ones, which she reportedly handles during ceremonies devoted to Dionysus. Philip, your father, is said to have once opened the bedroom door and found a serpent curled next to her in bed. And after that, according to Plutarch, his ardor for his wife cooled somewhat. Which, fair enough, that would cool anyone's ardor. But Olympias tells you something that shapes the entire trajectory of your life. She tells you that Philip is not your real father. She tells you that Zeus himself, king of the gods, lord of thunder, the big one, visited her on the night of your conception. Whether she genuinely believes this is impossible to know. Whether you genuinely believe it is one of the great unresolvable questions of your biography, but you carry it. You carry it like a stone in your pocket, something you reach for when the world feels too small or your father feels too large. You are the son of a king, but your mother says you are the son of a god. And that claim, whispered to you in childhood, will echo through every temple you enter, every battle you fight, every decision you make about who and what you are. Your father Philip is, by any measure, one of the most formidable men of his century. He is also, by any measure, terrifying. He lost his right eye to an arrow during the siege of Methone. He shattered his collarbone in another battle. His leg was so badly wounded that he walks with a permanent limp. He displays these injuries openly, proudly, the way some men display medals. His body is a map of wars won, and he reads from it frequently, especially when he's drinking, which is often. Philip inherited a kingdom of 10,000 part-time infantrymen and 600 cavalry, basically a large, disorganized gang with horses. He transformed it into the most powerful military force in Greece. He invented the Sarissa phalanx, a formation of soldiers carrying 18-foot pikes that turned infantry into a bristling wall of iron points. He created the first standing professional army in Greek history, soldiers who were paid regular wages, trained year-round, and promoted on merit. He conquered Thessaly, Thrace, and most of central Greece, not through brute force alone, but through a combination of military genius, diplomatic cunning, bribery, and the occasional strategic marriage. He married at least 7 women. Diplomacy in Philip's Macedonia often started at the altar. And you adore him. You fear him. You want to impress him so badly it sits in your chest like a physical thing. And when he comes home from campaign, dusty and limping and smelling of horse sweat and wine, you watch him with the intensity of a boy who knows that his father's approval is the most valuable and the most unreliable currency in the world. There is a story, probably apocryphal but emotionally true, that when news of Philip's victories reaches Pella, young Alexander turns to his friends and says with genuine distress, "My father will leave nothing great for me to do. You are maybe 12 years old, and you are already afraid of being ordinary. Now, the horse. This is the story that follows you for the rest of your life, and it deserves to be told properly, because it is the first time the world sees who you are." A horse dealer arrives at Pella with a stallion for sale. The horse is enormous, black, wild-eyed, with a white blaze on his forehead, shaped like an ox's skull, which is why they call him Bucephalus, Oxhead. The asking price is 13 talents, which is an extraordinary sum, enough to fund a small military campaign. Philip's men try to ride the horse, and one by one they fail. Bucephalus rears, kicks, throws them. He is magnificent and completely uncontrollable, and Philip, watching from the sidelines with his officers, finally waves his hand and tells the dealer to take the animal away. It's too wild. It can't be broken. And this is where you step forward. You are somewhere between 10 and 13 years old. The ancient sources disagree on the exact age, which is fitting because the ancient sources disagree on almost everything. But you are young, you are small, and you have noticed something that every grown man in the courtyard has missed. The horse is afraid of its own shadow. Every time Bucephalus turns and sees the dark shape moving on the ground beneath him, he panics. He rears because he is terrified, not because he is vicious. The men trying to ride him have been fighting his fear without understanding it. You understand it. You walk to the horse. You take the reins, and you turn him to face the sun, so that his shadow falls behind him where he cannot see it. Bucephalus calms. His ears go forward. His breathing steadies. And you, a boy, skinny, determined, radiating the kind of quiet confidence that cannot be faked, you swing yourself onto his back and you ride. You ride him across the field and back. And when you return, your father Philip is weeping. Not quietly, not with restraint, weeping openly in front of his generals and his court. And he says the words that will ring through history like a bell. "My son, look for a kingdom equal to and worthy of yourself, for Macedonia is too small for you." It is, by any account, one of the great father-son moments in Western civilization. It is also, if you think about it for more than 5 seconds, an unbelievably heavy thing to say to a child. Macedonia is too small for you. What does that do to a 10-year-old? What kind of expectation does that plant? Philip means it as praise, and it is praise, the highest praise a warrior king can offer. But it is also a prophecy, and a burden and a dare, all wrapped in tears. You have just tamed what grown men could not, and your father has just told you that an entire kingdom isn't enough. Bucephalus will carry you for the next 20 years, through every major battle, across rivers and deserts and mountain passes. He will be the one constant in a life that grows increasingly chaotic, the one creature who never judges you, never fears you, never wants anything from you except to run. When he dies in India, after the Battle of the Hydaspes, You will found a city in his honor. You will name it Bucephala. Because he was not just a horse. He was the first thing you saved, the first thing that trusted you completely, and the proof offered to you on a dusty field in Pella, when you were barely old enough to hold the reins, that you could see what others couldn't. But that's a grief for later. Right now, you are a boy on a black horse, and the wind is in your face, and your father is crying, and the whole world feels like it's opening up. You are 13 years old, and your father has just done something that will shape the rest of your life. He's hired you a tutor. Not just any tutor. Not some local schoolmaster who teaches grammar and smacks your knuckles when you conjugate verbs incorrectly. Philip has hired Aristotle. The man who studied under Plato, who studied under Socrates, who is, by reasonable consensus, the most brilliant mind in the Greek-speaking world. Philip has essentially looked at the intellectual landscape of the 4th century BC and said, "Get me the best one," the way you might order the most expensive item on a menu just to see what happens. Except this particular order costs Philip an entire city. To secure Aristotle's services, Philip agrees to rebuild the philosopher's hometown of Stagira, which he had previously destroyed. He also frees its enslaved inhabitants. So your tuition, if we're calculating, is one rebuilt city, and several hundred liberated human beings. Your education is, quite literally, priceless. No pressure. Aristotle arrives at the Temple of the Nymphs at Miesa, a quiet sanctuary nestled in gardens and shaded walkways about a day's ride from Pella. This is where you will study for the next 3 years, away from the court, away from the politics, away from your mother's intensity and your father's shadow. Miesa is beautiful in the way that places designed for thinking tend to be. Covered walkways draped in climbing plants, groves of plane trees whose leaves filter the light into something green and dappled, stone benches worn smooth by centuries of students. The air smells of earth and crushed herbs and, faintly, of the ink that Aristotle uses to annotate his scrolls. It is the most peaceful place you will ever inhabit. And decades later, when you are camped on the edge of the known world, you will remember the sound of wind through those trees with an ache you can't quite name. You are not alone here. Your classmates include Hephaestion, Ptolemy, Cassander, Marsyas, and several other sons of Macedonian nobles. These boys will become your generals, your governors, your confidants, and, in at least one case, your enemy. But right now, they are just teenagers in a garden, sitting at the feet of a man who believes that the entire world can be understood through careful observation and rigorous thought. And here's the thing about Aristotle that changes you. He doesn't just teach you what to think. He teaches you how to think. He teaches you logic, rhetoric, ethics, politics, biology, medicine, physics, metaphysics, poetry. He dissects animals in front of you and explains their anatomy. He classifies plants by their characteristics. He argues that knowledge comes not from divine revelation, but from observation, from looking at the world with clear eyes and asking why. This is revolutionary. In an age when most people explain thunder as Zeus throwing a tantrum, Aristotle is training you to look for the mechanism behind the myth. You study geometry and arithmetic because a general who cannot calculate distances, supply requirements, and terrain angles is a dead general. You study rhetoric because a king who cannot persuade is merely a man with a crown. You study medicine because Aristotle believes a leader should understand the body, how it heals, how it breaks, what kills it, and what saves it. Years from now, on campaign, you will personally treat wounded soldiers, diagnose fevers, and recommend remedies. Your men will find this astonishing. You will find it obvious. Aristotle taught you that knowledge is not an ornament. It is a tool. But of everything Aristotle gives you, one gift matters more than all the rest. He gives you a copy of Homer's Iliad. Not just any copy. An annotated edition. Aristotle's own notes written in the margins. His commentary on the poetry, the strategy, the characters. This is the equivalent of getting a personally annotated Bible from the smartest person alive. You read it and something locks into place inside you with an almost audible click. You fall in love with Achilles. Not just admiration, not just respect. Love. Identification so deep it borders on obsession. Achilles, the greatest warrior of the Trojan War, the hero who chose a short, glorious life over a long, forgotten one. Achilles, who your mother says is your ancestor through her bloodline. Achilles, who loved his companion Patroclus with a devotion that transcended everything. Duty, strategy, survival. You will sleep with this book under your pillow for the rest of your life. And you will sleep with a dagger under there too, because even in your dreams, you are both a scholar and a soldier. Historians would later argue about this moment, about whether your obsession with Achilles was healthy or pathological, whether it drove you toward greatness or toward self-destruction. The answer, as with most things about you, is probably both. Achilles made a choice, glory and an early death, or obscurity and a long life. The Iliad makes it clear which option he chose and which option you choose too. You don't decide this at 13 in a garden. You decide it slowly, over years, through 1,000 small decisions that all point in the same direction. But the seed is planted here, at Miesa, under the plane trees, with Aristotle's handwriting in the margins and the Aegean wind carrying the smell of time through the colonnades. Now, you won't know this yet, but one of the boys sitting beside you in this garden will matter more to you than almost anyone else you will ever meet. His name is Hephaestion. He is taller than you, quieter, steadier. Where you are electric and restless and prone to sudden intensities, Hephaestion is calm, watchful, the kind of person who listens more than he speaks and means every word when he does. You are drawn to each other immediately, with the fierce, uncomplicated magnetism of adolescence. Whether your bond is romantic, or the intense platonic devotion that Greeks called philia, or something that resists categories entirely. Historians have debated this for 23 centuries and will continue debating it for 23 more. What matters is this. Hephaestion knows you, not the prince, not the son of Philip, not the boy his mother says was fathered by Zeus. You, the real one, the one who gets angry too fast and reads Homer too late and worries, quietly in the dark, that he might not be enough. You will later call him Philolexandros, the one who loves Alexander, and you will call yourself Philhephaestion, the one who loves Hephaestion. He is the only person in your life who will never want anything from you, except your company. Remember that. It will matter terribly at the end. There's another boy here too. His name is Cassander. He is the son of Antipater, one of Philip's most trusted generals. Cassander is ambitious, sharp-faced, and there is something about the way he watches you that is not quite admiration, and not quite envy, but some unstable compound of both. Remember his face, you'll see it again, and when you do, the sight of it will make you grab him by the hair and slam his head against a wall. But that's a story for another chapter. 3 years pass at Mieza. They are, by any reckoning, the happiest years of your life, though you don't know that yet. Happiness is one of those things you can only identify in retrospect, like the moment a storm started, or the exact instant you stopped being a child. Aristotle gave Alexander the tools to organize a chaotic world: logic, rhetoric, and a focused mind. But even a prince needs help finding his center when the weight of the world starts to press in. Most of us aren't leading armies, but we are battling distractions, endless notifications, and the noise of modern life. If you find your mind wandering when you need to be at your sharpest, Brain.fm is the modern equivalent of an Aristotelian education for your focus. While typical music can actually distract you, Brain.fm uses neural phase locking to help your brain ignore the noise and slide into a state of deep work or creative flow in just 5 minutes. It's a tool for the modern conqueror who needs to get things done without the mental fatigue. They also have scientifically researched music to help you relax, to sleep, even to spark creativity. Support your focus and our channel by clicking the link in the description. And then your father calls you home. Not because your education is complete, but because the world won't wait. You are 16 years old when Philip leaves you in charge of Macedonia. He marches south to campaign against Byzantium, and he leaves his teenage son as regent, the acting ruler of the kingdom. This is either an extraordinary vote of confidence or a calculated risk, and knowing Philip, it is both. He wants to see what you're made of. He also needs someone he trusts in Pella, and trust in the Macedonian court is a commodity even rarer than Aristotle. You don't disappoint. A Thracian tribe called the Mede, sensing weakness, sensing a boy on the throne instead of a king, revolts against Macedonian authority. You crush them. Not with Philip's army, not with Philip's generals advising your every move, but with your own judgment, your own nerve. You drive the Mede from their territory and found a city on the site of their settlement. You name it Alexandroupolis, after yourself. You are 16. Most 16-year-olds are figuring out how to talk to people they find attractive. You are founding cities and naming them after yourself. The confidence is staggering. The ego is developing. But the real test comes 2 years later, and it comes with blood. The Battle of Cheronea, August 338 BC. You are 18 years old. Philip has been building toward this moment for decades. A final confrontation with the combined forces of Athens and Thebes, the two most powerful city-states in southern Greece. If Philip wins, he controls all of Greece. If he loses, everything he's built collapses. The stakes could not be higher. He gives you command of the left wing. The left wing of a Macedonian battle line is the cavalry wing, the strike force, the hammer that swings around and smashes into the enemy's flank while the phalanx pins them in place. This is the most important and most dangerous position on the field. Philip gives it to his 18-year-old son. Think about that. Think about what that says about his confidence in you. Think about what it says about the pressure. Across the field, on the Theban right, stands the sacred band. 300 warriors, paired lovers, sworn to fight and die beside each other. They have never been defeated in battle. They are the most elite fighting unit in Greece, and they are standing directly in your path. You charge. The companion cavalry, heavy horsemen in bronze armor, riding in a wedge formation with you at the point, because you are always at the point, always first, always where the danger is thickest, slams into the Theban line. The fighting is close and savage. The sacred band does not break. They do not flee. They fight where they stand, as they swore to do, and you kill them. Not all at once, not easily, but methodically, relentlessly, with the cold precision that Aristotle taught you, and the fury that Olympius bred into you. When it is over, the sacred band is destroyed. 254 of them are dead. The rest are wounded. Thebes and Athens surrender. Greece belongs to your father. But everyone knows who broke the sacred band. Philip is proud. He includes a statue of you in the Philippion, a monument at Olympia dedicated to the royal family. He holds banquets in your honor. He tells his generals that his son is a warrior. But there is something in his eyes when he looks at you now, something that wasn't there when you were a boy on a horse. You are no longer just his heir. You are his rival. You are 18, undefeated, charismatic, and increasingly popular with the army. His army, the army he built. Philip is in his mid-40s. He limps. He drinks. He has one eye. And his son, golden and young and burning with a light that Philip recognizes because he used to carry it himself, is standing in the room like a question Philip isn't ready to answer. The years at Miesa are over. The philosophy, the poetry, the dappled light under the plane trees, all of that belongs to a version of you that is fading fast. Aristotle taught you how to think. Philip taught you how to fight. Your mother told you that you were divine. And now the world is watching to see which lesson sticks. You don't realize it yet, but this is the moment everything changes. Because Philip is about to make a decision. A marriage, a toast, a drunken lunge with a sword, that will shatter the bond between father and son and set you on a path toward a throne you didn't expect to inherit so soon. But that's the next chapter. For now, you are 18. You have just destroyed the finest warriors in Greece. Your father weeps, not with the simple joy of Bucephalus, but with something more complicated, something that tastes like pride and fear in equal measure. And somewhere in the back of your mind, underneath the triumph and the blood and the roar of your men, there is a small, quiet thought that you have carried since you were a boy walking on mosaic floors depicting heroes and gods. It's not enough. It's never going to be enough. Your father is getting married again. This is not in itself unusual. Philip II of Macedon collects wives the way some men collect scars, which, to be fair, he also collects. He has married at least 7 times already, and each marriage has been a diplomatic tool, a strategic alliance sealed in wedding garlands rather than wax. Your mother Olympias was one of these marriages. She was wife number 4, or possibly 3, depending on which historian you trust, and how generous you're feeling about the definition of wife in ancient Macedonia. The point is, Philip marries. It's what he does. It's practically a hobby. But this marriage is different, and you know it the moment you hear the name. Cleopatra Eurydice. She is young, beautiful, and this is the part that sits in your chest like a stone. She is fully Macedonian. Not Epirote, like your mother. Not foreign. Not from one of the peripheral kingdoms Philip married into for strategic advantage. She is from the Macedonian heartland, niece of General Attalus, one of Philip's most powerful military commanders. And if she bears Philip a son, that son will have a claim to the throne that is, by Macedonian reckoning, purer than yours. You are 20 years old. You have crushed the sacred band. You have governed Macedonia as regent. You have fought, bled, commanded, and won. And now your father has taken a wife who could produce the heir that replaces you. Your mother sees it immediately. Olympias is many things: fierce, brilliant, manipulative, devoted. But she is above all a survivor. And survivors recognize threats the way a hawk recognizes movement in tall grass. She knows what this marriage means. If Cleopatra Eurydice produces a male child, you become expendable. Not just politically, physically. The Macedonian court has a long, enthusiastic history of resolving succession disputes by murdering the less favored candidate. You grew up in this palace. You know the stains beneath the mosaics. And so the wedding feast becomes the most important banquet of your life, though you don't walk in expecting it. The hall is full. Generals, nobles, ambassadors, courtiers. The entire power structure of Macedonia reclining on couches, drinking unmixed wine, eating roasted meats served on gleaming platters. Philip is in high spirits. He is marrying a beautiful young woman from a powerful family. His kingdom is the strongest in Greece. His army is the most disciplined fighting force on the continent. Everything is going exactly according to Philip's plan. Then Attalus stands up. Uncle of the bride, powerful general, and on this particular evening, catastrophically drunk. He raises his cup and proposes a toast, and the words that come out of his mouth land in the room like a lit torch tossed into dry timber. He toasts to a legitimate heir to the Macedonian throne. Legitimate. The word hangs in the air. It doesn't need explanation. Every person in that room understands exactly what Attalus is saying. Your mother is foreign. You are half foreign. The child that Cleopatra Eurydice might bear, that child would be fully Macedonian. That child would be legitimate in a way that you, by Attalus's reckoning, are not. You are on your feet before you've made a conscious decision to stand. The cup in your hand is moving toward Attalus's head before your brain has finished processing the insult. You hurl it at him. Wine and bronze arc across the banquet. "Do you take me for a bastard?" you shout, and the room goes silent in that specific, terrible way that rooms go silent when everyone realizes that what happens next will be remembered. Philip erupts. Your father, drunk, furious, defender of his new bride's family, draws his sword. He lunges at you, his own son. Across the banquet hall, in front of his generals, his court, his new wife, Philip II of Macedon draws a weapon on the boy he raised, the prince he trained, the warrior he wept over when he tamed Bucephalus. And then he falls. He stumbles. Whether it's the wine or the leg wound or the sheer momentum of his rage carrying him past his center of gravity, Philip goes down. The most feared warrior in Greece, the conqueror of Thessaly and Thrace, the man who reshaped the map of the ancient world, trips over his own feet in his own banquet hall. And you, standing over your fallen father, with wine dripping from your hand and fury burning in your throat, say the words that will follow both of you into history. Look at this man. He's preparing to cross from Europe into Asia, and he can't even cross from one couch to another. It is devastating. It is precise. It is the kind of line that people repeat for centuries, because it captures something perfectly. The absurdity, the humiliation, the reversal of power between a son who is rising and a father who is falling. It's also the kind of line that you can never take back, and somewhere beneath the adrenaline, you know that. You have just mocked the most dangerous man in Greece in front of everyone who matters. The aftermath is swift. You leave Pella. Not voluntarily. You are effectively exiled, though the court politics are too Byzantine to ever call it that directly. Your mother flees to her brother in Epirus. You go to Illyria, to the wild borderlands where Macedonia's influence frays into mountain passes and tribal territories. You are a prince without a palace, a warrior without an army, and for the first time in your life, you don't know what comes next. The months in exile are a void in the historical record. We don't know much about what you did, thought, or felt during this period, and historians who are honest will tell you that. But we can imagine. You are 20 years old. You have been groomed for the throne since childhood. You are brilliant, ambitious, and accustomed to being the center of every room you enter. And now you are sitting in an Illyrian guest house, probably cold, probably furious, wondering if everything you've built is being given away to an infant who hasn't been born yet. There is a reconciliation eventually. A mediator named Demaratus of Corinth arranges your return to Pella. Philip agrees. You come back. But the wound, the real wound, not the political damage, but the private aching knowledge that your father drew a sword on you, that doesn't heal. It calcifies. It becomes part of the architecture of your relationship with Philip, a load-bearing wall of resentment that both of you learn to navigate around, but neither of you ever addresses. And then the Pixodaros affair makes everything worse. Philip arranges a marriage between his other son, Aridaeus, your half-brother, who has a significant cognitive disability, and the daughter of the satrap of Caria, a regional governor in the Persian Empire. It's a minor diplomatic marriage. Routine. Except you hear about it and panic. Why is Philip using Aridaeus for a diplomatic marriage? Is Philip positioning Aridaeus as a potential heir? Is this another move to sideline you? You do something impulsive, something that reveals just how rattled you are beneath the golden surface. You secretly send your own envoy to Caria, offering yourself as the bridegroom instead of Aridaeus. You are trying to outmaneuver your own father. Philip finds out, and he is incandescent. He summons you. He stands in front of you, one-eyed, limping, still the most terrifying man you have ever known. And he doesn't shout. That's how you know it's bad. When Philip is merely angry, he shouts. When Philip is something worse than angry, he becomes quiet. He tells you that you are unworthy, that offering yourself to a provincial satrap's daughter is beneath you, that you have embarrassed the crown, undermined his diplomacy, and revealed yourself to be, and this is the part that cuts deepest, insecure. Philip sees through you. He sees the fear behind the bravado, the 20-year-old who is so terrified of being replaced that he sabotages his own father's arrangements. He banishes your closest friends, Ptolemy, Nearchus, Harpalus, Erigaius, the boys from Mieza, your inner circle, stripped away as punishment for your paranoia. You are alone in a way you have never been before. And this is where your story could go in many directions. In a different world, with a different sequence of events, you might have reconciled with Philip properly. He might have lived another 20 years. You might have inherited the throne as a mature 30-year-old, patient and seasoned, after watching your father age and slow, and eventually hand you the reins. The conquest of Persia might have been Philip's achievement, not yours. But a different sequence of events is not what you get. What you get is October 336 BC, your sister Cleopatra's wedding, and a man named Pausanias with a dagger and a grudge. The wedding is political theatre on a grand scale. Philip is marrying your sister to Alexander of Epirus, your mother's brother, your uncle, to shore up the alliance with Epirus, and to signal to the Greek world that Macedonia's royal family is united, stable, powerful. The venue is the ancient capital of Aigai, in a theatre carved into the hillside, open to the morning sky. Philip has planned every detail. He enters the theatre at dawn, wearing a white cloak and a golden crown, walking between his son, you, and his new son-in-law. He has ordered that no bodyguards walk with him. He wants to appear approachable, beloved, unafraid. He wants the assembled dignitaries to see a king so secure in his power that he needs no protection. This is, in retrospect, a catastrophic miscalculation. Pausanias is one of Philip's bodyguards. He is young, handsome, and he has a grievance that runs deeper than politics. Years ago, Pausanias was Philip's lover, one of many, because Philip's appetites are not limited by gender or convention. But Pausanias was replaced by a younger man, and in the aftermath of this replacement, he publicly insulted his rival. The rival, humiliated, died in battle shortly after, deliberately, some say, seeking death. The rival's patron was General Attalus, the same Attalus who toasted two legitimate heirs at the wedding feast. And Attalus's revenge was not political. It was personal, savage and medieval. He invited Pausanias to a banquet, got him drunk, and had him gang-raped by his servants. Pausanias went to Philip. Philip, who needed Attalus for the upcoming Persian campaign, who could not afford to alienate one of his most powerful generals, refused to punish Attalus. He offered Pausanias promotions, gifts, a higher rank, but not justice. So Pausanias decides to take justice himself. As Philip walks into the theatre, Unguarded, radiant, the picture of royal confidence, Pausanias draws a concealed dagger and drives it through the king's heart. Philip dies on the theatre floor, in his white cloak, under the morning sun, in front of everyone who matters. Pausanias sprints toward a group of horses that have been conveniently stationed nearby. He almost makes it, but his sandal catches on a vine root. A vine root of all things, this tiny, stupid, arbitrary detail that changes the course of Western civilization, and he stumbles. Philip's other bodyguards catch him and kill him on the spot, which is very convenient for anyone who might have wanted Philip dead and didn't want Pausanias alive to answer questions. Who killed Philip? Pausanias held the dagger. But daggers are tools, and tools serve purposes, and the list of people who benefited from Philip's death is long enough to fill a scroll. The Persians, who knew Philip was about to invade, and who had both the motive and the gold to hire an assassin. Olympias, who had been exiled, humiliated, and threatened with being replaced. The Macedonian nobles, who resented Philip's growing autocracy. And you who were next in line. You who had been publicly humiliated, exiled, and stripped of your friends. You who stood to gain everything, and whose mother had every reason to help. Historians will debate this for millennia. Most will conclude that you probably didn't order the killing directly. But the speed of what happens next raises questions that never quite get answered. Within hours of Philip's death, you are proclaimed King of Macedonia. You are 20 years old, possibly 21, and you move with a decisiveness that is either the mark of a brilliant mind seizing an opportunity or the mark of someone who was prepared. You eliminate rivals systematically. Attalus is hunted down and killed. Your cousin Amyntas, who had a competing claim to the throne, is executed. Your mother, and this is where things get dark even by Macedonian standards, reportedly kills Cleopatra Eurydice's infant daughter and forces Cleopatra to hang herself. Whether you ordered this, or merely allowed it, or were horrified by it, no one knows. The sources are silent on your reaction, and silence, in ancient texts, usually means the truth is uncomfortable. You are king. You have the army, the treasury, the crown. You have everything Philip built. And standing in the palace at Pella, in the rooms where you grew up walking on mosaics of gods and heroes, you can feel the weight of your father's unfinished dream pressing against your chest like a hand. Philip was going to invade Persia. He had the army. He had the plan. He had the advance force already across the Hellespont. You have all of this now, but you also have something Philip never had. You have rage and grief, and a burning, insatiable need to prove that Macedonia was, in fact, too small for you. Spring 334 BC. You are standing on the deck of a ship crossing the Hellespont, the narrow strait separating Europe from Asia, and you are about to do something that has nothing to do with military strategy. You are going to Troy. Your army, 47,000 strong, the most disciplined fighting force the ancient world has ever seen, is crossing behind you. Cavalry, infantry, engineers, siege specialists, supply wagons, physicians, surveyors, scribes, even a contingent of scientists Aristotle recommended, because you believe that conquering a land and understanding it are not separate projects. This army, is your father's creation, redesigned and sharpened by you into something that moves with the precision of a machine and the fury of a living thing. They are crossing the Hellespont to invade the largest empire on earth. But you are going to Troy first. Because before you are a general, before you are a king, before you are anything else, you are a boy with a book under his pillow, who promised himself that he would stand where Achilles stood. You reach the ruins of Troy and you strip naked. This is not madness. It's ritual. You oil your body and run a race around the tomb of Achilles, the way Greek heroes do to honor their dead. You lay a wreath on the tomb. You take a set of antique weapons from the temple, weapons that are said to date from the Trojan War itself, and you leave your own armor as an offering. Hephaestion, because he understands you in ways no one else does, lays a wreath at the tomb of Patroclus. The meaning is not subtle. Achilles and Patroclus, Alexander and Hephaestion. The parallel is deliberate, and everyone who witnesses it understands what is being said without words. You also stop at the Temple of Athena, where a priest shows you a lyre that supposedly belonged to Paris, the prince of Troy whose abduction of Helen started the whole war. You tell the priest politely that you have no interest in the lyre of Paris. Paris was a lover, not a fighter. You want the lyre of Achilles, who sang of the deeds of heroes. Even your tourism has a point. Now, you won't know this yet. Standing there in the sun on the shore of Asia, 22 years old and vibrating with purpose. But this visit to Troy is more important than it seems. It's not a detour. It's a declaration. You are telling your army, the Persians and the gods themselves, that this campaign is not just a military operation, it is a mythic repetition. The Greeks are crossing to Asia again. Achilles is reborn. And this time, Troy will be just the beginning. The Persian Empire you are about to attack is almost incomprehensibly vast. It stretches from the Mediterranean to the borders of India, from the steppes of Central Asia to the deserts of Egypt. It contains dozens of ethnic groups, languages, religions, and cultures, all governed by a system of satraps. Regional governors who rule their provinces with considerable autonomy under the authority of the great king. That great king is currently Darius III, a tall, handsome man who ascended the throne through a series of court intrigues and assassinations that make the Macedonian succession look quaint. Darius has an army that outnumbers yours by at least 3-1. He has the wealth of Persepolis and Susa behind him. He has the vast territorial advantage of fighting on home ground. But he does not have you. The first battle comes in May, at the river Granicus, in modern-day Turkey. The Persian satraps of Asia Minor have assembled their forces along the far bank of the river, a steep, muddy embankment that makes a cavalry crossing suicidal. Their best commander, a Greek mercenary named Memnon of Rhodes, has advised them to avoid battle entirely. Memnon's strategy is brilliant. Don't fight Alexander directly. Burn the crops, destroy the harbors, deny his army food and landing points, starve him out. Let the vast geography of the Persian Empire do what Persian armies might not. The satraps ignore Memnon. They are Persian nobles, proud and confident, and they will not retreat from a 22-year-old boy with a Homeric complex. They line up along the river and wait. You survey the Granicus from the opposite bank. The water is fast. The far bank is steep and defended. Your General Parmenion, Philip's old war dog, cautious, experienced, the voice of reason you will increasingly choose to ignore, advises you to wait until morning, to cross upstream where the banks are flatter, to find a better approach. You look at the river, you look at the Persians, you look at the fading afternoon light, you charge. The companion cavalry slams into the river at full gallop. The water is waist deep on the horses. The current pulls at their legs. Arrows hiss overhead. And you are at the point of the wedge, because you are always at the point. Because something in you understands that leadership is not about giving orders from a hill. It is about being the first person the enemy sees. You hit the far bank, and the fighting becomes close, vicious, and personal. A Persian nobleman named Mithridates spots you. You're not hard to spot, because your helmet has a massive white plume on each side that functions as a flag that says, "I am right here. Come and kill me if you can." Mithridates charges. He strikes your helmet with a battle-axe. The blow cracks the helmet and cuts to the skin. Another Persian nobleman, Rosses or Spithridates, the sources disagree, swings his sword at your unprotected side, and for one frozen second you are about to die. 22 years old, in the first major battle of your campaign, cut down by a cavalryman on a riverbank in Asia Minor. The whole grand project ended before it started. Then Cletus the Black saves your life. Clytus, experienced, loyal, the brother of your childhood nurse, sees the sword coming and swings his own blade, severing the Persian's arm at the shoulder. The arm, still gripping the sword, falls to the ground. You are alive because Cletus was watching. Remember Clytus. Remember this moment. Remember the debt. You'll repay it. Badly. The Battle of the Granicus is a decisive victory. The Persian cavalry is destroyed. Memnon's mercenaries are slaughtered or captured. You send 300 suits of Persian armor back to Athens as an offering to Athena, with an inscription that is both dedication and provocation. Alexander, son of Philip, and the Greeks, all except the Spartans, dedicate these spoils from the barbarians of Asia. The Spartans didn't participate in this campaign, and you want everyone to know it. Even your trophies are political. The cities of Asia Minor begin falling like dominoes. Many surrender without a fight. You present yourself not as a conqueror, but as a liberator, freeing Greek cities from Persian rule, restoring their democracies, reducing their taxes. It's brilliant politics. It's also, at least in part, sincere. You genuinely believe in the idea of Greek civilization as a force for good, and you genuinely believe that you are its instrument. Then comes Gordium, and the knot. In the ancient Phrygian capital of Gordium, in a temple, there sits an old ox cart. It is tied to a post with an impossibly complex knot of cornel bark, and an ancient prophecy declares that whoever unties this knot will rule all of Asia. The Gordian knot has been there for centuries. No one has ever untied it. The knot is a test, a riddle, a challenge from the past to the present. You study the knot. The sources disagree on what happens next, and the disagreement is delightful because it reveals something true about how the world sees you. In one version, you stare at the knot, work at it with your fingers, grow frustrated, and then draw your sword and cut it in half. Brutal, direct, effective. The prophecy said, untie. It didn't say, be delicate about it. This is the version most people know, and it's the version that launched a metaphor that will survive for 23 centuries. Cutting the Gordian knot will become shorthand for solving an impossible problem by refusing to accept the problem's terms. In another version, Aristobulus's version, which some historians find more credible, you simply pull the pin from the yoke, slide the knot off, and unravel it from the inside. No sword required, just observation, just seeing the mechanism beneath the myth. Either way, the knot comes undone, and that night a thunderstorm rolls over Gordium, and the priests declare that the gods approve. Whether you believe them or not, you accept the symbolism. You are the man who will rule Asia. The knot said so. Now, Darius. He's coming for you personally this time. No satraps, no proxies. Darius III, great king of Persia, lord of the 4 quarters of the world, is marching with the full imperial army to crush you. The battle will happen at Issus, in November 333 BC, in a narrow coastal plain pinched between the Mediterranean Sea and the Amanus Mountains. And the terrain, this is critical, is going to save your life. Darius has assembled a massive army. Ancient sources claim 600,000 soldiers, which is almost certainly exaggerated, but even conservative modern estimates put his forces at well over 100,000. He has heavy infantry, light cavalry, Greek mercenaries, and the feared immortals, the elite royal guard of 10,000 who are called immortal, because whenever one falls, he is immediately replaced, so the unit is always at full strength. On paper, you are outnumbered at least 2 to 1. Probably more. But Issus is narrow. The mountains on one side and the sea on the other compress the battlefield into a strip that neutralizes Darius's numerical advantage. He can't outflank you. He can't surround you. He can only come at you head-on, and head-on is where you live. Your plan is the same plan that will define every major battle of your career. Pin them with the phalanx, strike with the cavalry, and aim directly at the king. Kill or capture Darius, and the army collapses. It's simple, audacious, and requires the kind of timing that gets people killed when it goes wrong. It goes right. Your phalanx advances across the Pinarus River, pinning the Persian center. Meanwhile, you lead the companion cavalry on the right wing in a devastating charge that tears through the Persian left flank. And then you turn inward. You wheel the cavalry and drive directly toward the center of the Persian line, toward Darius. The great king sees you coming. He sees the white-plumed helmet, the companion cavalry in its wedge formation, the dust and the blood, and this 23-year-old lunatic cutting through his personal guard like they are not the most feared soldiers in the world. And Darius makes the decision that will define him forever. He runs. The great king of Persia, lord of the 4 quarters, turns his chariot around and flees. His army, seeing their king abandon the field, collapses into chaos. The rout is total. Persian soldiers drown trying to cross the river. Thousands are killed in the retreat. And you can almost taste it. You are chasing Darius across the battlefield. You can see his chariot ahead of you, bouncing over broken ground, his royal cloak streaming behind him. If you catch him, the war is over. If you catch him, the Persian Empire falls today. You don't catch him. He escapes by switching to a horse and riding into the mountains. But you capture something almost as valuable, his entire family. Darius's mother, the Queen Mother Sisygambis, his wife, Queen Statera, his children, including his young daughters, the royal household, the most precious people in the Persian Empire, are now your prisoners. The next morning, you visit the royal tent. Sisygambis sees two men enter and throws herself at the feet of the taller one, assuming he must be the king. That man is Hephaestion. He is taller than you, more conventionally handsome, some sources say. Sisygambis realizes her mistake and recoils mortified. And you say, "Don't worry, he too is Alexander." It is one of the most gracious things anyone has ever said in the middle of a war. It tells Sisygambis that she has not offended you. It tells Hephaestion that you consider him your equal. It tells the watching court that this new conqueror is not what they expected, not the barbarian they were warned about, not the savage Macedonian who drinks his wine straight and worships his warhorse. You are something else, something more complicated, something they don't have a category for. You treat the royal family with extraordinary respect. No one is harmed, no one is degraded. They retain their servants, their quarters, their dignity. Sisygambis will grow so attached to you that when she eventually learns of your death, years later, she will refuse to eat and die of grief within days. Meanwhile, Darius sends you a message. He offers you all the territory west of the Euphrates, half the Persian Empire, his daughter's hand in marriage, and 10,000 talents of gold. In exchange, peace. His family returned. The war ended. Your general Parmenion, practical, cautious, representing the voice of rational self-interest, says, "I would accept if I were Alexander." And you respond, "So would I, if I were Parmenion." It is witty, it is arrogant, it is breathtaking, and it means the war continues, because you don't want half of an empire. You don't want a negotiated settlement. You don't want what Philip would have accepted. You want all of it. And here's the thing no one tells you, because no one can see it yet. Not your generals, not Hephaestion, not even you. This moment right here, this refusal, is the fork in the road. Accept the offer, and you go home as the greatest conqueror in Greek history. Alexander the Great, king of half the known world at 23. It's enough. It's more than enough. It's more than any Macedonian king has ever dreamed. You enter Egypt like a god. This is not a metaphor. The Egyptians have been under Persian rule for 2 centuries, and they despise it. When you arrive at the head of your army, having just broken the Persian garrison at Gaza, where you took a catapult bolt through the shoulder because you cannot seem to go a single campaign without getting hit by something, the Egyptians don't fight you. They celebrate. Priests come out to greet you. Officials present the keys to their cities. You are not a conqueror here. You are a deliverer. You are the man who ended Persian occupation. And in Egypt, deliverers have a habit of becoming something more. You found a city, on the coast, at the western edge of the Nile Delta, where the sea and the river create a natural harbor. You sketch the outlines of Alexandria. You will never see it completed. You will, in fact, never return to this spot. But the city you design will become one of the greatest in the ancient world. Its library will hold more knowledge than any institution in human history. Its lighthouse will be one of the 7 wonders. It will be the intellectual capital of the Mediterranean for centuries, and it will bear your name. One of over 20 cities you'll name after yourself, which is either visionary urban planning or the most aggressive personal branding campaign in antiquity. Possibly both. But Alexandria is a footnote compared to what happens next. You travel west, across the Libyan desert, into the Sahara. Your army stays behind. This journey is personal, and you bring only a small escort. You are heading to the oracle of Zeus Ammon at the oasis of Siwa, a pilgrimage site sacred to both Greeks and Egyptians. The journey nearly kills you. The desert is vast, featureless, and merciless. Your guides lose the way. Water runs low. According to Ptolemy, who is there and who will later become Pharaoh of Egypt and write his own suspiciously flattering account of your life, a flock of ravens appears and guides you to the oasis. Whether you believe this is divine intervention or a lucky break depends on how much you need the divine to be real. You reach Siwa. The oracle's priest meets you at the entrance to the temple, and according to every source we have, the priest addresses you as Son of Ammon, Son of God. Now, what actually happened inside that temple is one of the great mysteries of your biography. You go in alone. You come out changed. You never tell anyone exactly what the oracle said, except to mention in a letter to your mother that you'll share it with her privately someday face to face. You never get the chance. But from this point forward, something shifts. You begin referring to Zeus Ammon as your father. Not Philip. Not the one-eyed, limping warrior king who raised you. Zeus Ammon, the god. Do you believe it? Historians have tortured themselves over this question for 23 centuries, and the honest answer is, we don't know. Maybe you genuinely believe you're divine. Maybe you're a savvy politician exploiting Egyptian religious customs to consolidate power. Maybe it's something in between. A young man far from home, grieving a father he both loved and resented. Finding in the divine a version of paternity that doesn't come with complications. The truth is probably messier than any single explanation. You are 24 years old. You have conquered everything in your path. People kneel when you enter rooms. At some point, when enough people treat you like a god, the line between performance and belief starts to blur. But here's what the oracle costs you, even if you don't feel the price yet. It separates you from your men. The Macedonians worship the Greek gods. They respect Zeus. But they do not think their king is Zeus. And when you start acting like you believe you are, something subtle and irreversible begins to erode. Not loyalty. They will follow you for years yet. But familiarity, the easy, rough camaraderie of soldiers who eat together and bleed together and insult each other over cups of unmixed wine. You are becoming something your army can't quite joke with anymore. And that distance, once opened, only grows. But for now, you have an empire to finish breaking. October 1st, 331 BC, Gaugamela. The battle that ends the world, not the actual world. The world as it has existed for 200 years. The Persian Empire, the largest, wealthiest, most sophisticated civilization on Earth, is about to cease to exist. And you are about to be the one who kills it. On a dusty plain in what is now northern Iraq, under a sky full of stars and dust, Darius has assembled everything. Every soldier, every reserve, every allied contingent from every corner of his vast dominion. The ancient sources, Arrian, Curtius, Diodorus, throw around numbers that range from 200,000 to 1,000,000. And while modern historians scale those down to perhaps 120,000, the point remains. This is the largest army that has ever been assembled against you. Darius has learned from Issus. He's chosen flat, open terrain, specifically leveled and cleared, to maximize his advantage in numbers and allow his chariots and cavalry room to maneuver. He has 200 scythed chariots. He has 15 war elephants. He has the immortals, his elite guard. He has the numbers, the terrain, and the knowledge of what happened last time. You have 47,000 men, and a plan that is, at its core, insanely simple. You're going to do exactly what you did at Issus. Pin them with the phalanx. Strike with the cavalry. Aim for the king. The night before the battle, your general Parmenion, who you are beginning to realize, will always counsel the cautious path, suggests a night attack. Surprise the Persians in the dark. It's not a bad idea. You reject it with a line that has survived because it's perfectly calibrated to sound both noble and arrogant. I will not steal a victory. Morning comes. The two armies face each other across the plain. The dust is extraordinary. It rises from the dry ground in clouds that obscure the formations and coat everything in a fine, gritty film that gets into your eyes, your mouth, the joints of your armor. The noise is a wall of sound. Tens of thousands of men, horses, chariots, the rhythmic stamping of infantry preparing to advance, the braying of animals, the clash of weapons on shields. You are at the head of the companion cavalry, on the right wing, wearing your white-plumed helmet, riding a horse that is not Bucephalus. He is getting old, and you save him for the charge. Your strategy unfolds in 3 movements. First, you drift right. You lead the companion cavalry in a slow, deliberate rightward movement, pulling away from the center of the line. Darius, watching from his command chariot, sees you moving toward the edge of his prepared ground, the terrain he specifically leveled for his chariots. If you get past the edge, you're on rough ground where chariots can't follow. He has to respond. He sends cavalry to overlap your right wing, second the chariots. Darius launches his scythed chariots directly at your phalanx. These are terrifying weapons, bladed wheels designed to cut through infantry formations like a threshing machine through wheat. But your soldiers have been drilled for exactly this. As the chariots thunder in, your phalanx opens ranks. The men step aside, creating corridors, and the chariots pass through harmlessly, their momentum carrying them into the rear where they are captured by grooms and baggage handlers. It's elegant, rehearsed, and utterly humiliating for the attackers. Third, the strike. Your rightward drift has done its job. The Persian cavalry on Darius's left has been pulled out of position chasing you, and in the center, as the chariots failed and the phalanx advanced, a gap has opened in the Persian line. You see it. It's a narrow corridor of undefended space leading straight to where Darius is standing. You stop drifting, you wheel the companion cavalry, and you charge directly into the gap. This is the moment. This is the fulcrum of the ancient world. You are riding at the head of the finest cavalry in existence, in a wedge formation that concentrates force at a single point, you, and you are driving straight at the King of Kings with every ounce of speed and violence that 50,000 horses can produce. Darius sees you coming, again. The white plumes, the wedge, the dust, the killing machine cutting through his bodyguard like they are made of paper. And again, Darius runs. His chariot wheels around. He flees east into the dust cloud, away from the collapsing center of his army. And with his flight, the Persian Empire dies. Not in a proclamation, not in a treaty. In the moment, a king decides he would rather live than stand. The rout is catastrophic. Persian infantry that held its ground is overwhelmed. Cavalry that was still fighting sees the royal standard retreating and breaks. Thousands die in the pursuit. Darius abandons his chariot, his weapons, his shield, his royal mantle. He escapes on horseback, riding east into the darkness, and he will keep running for months. You want to chase him. Every fiber of your being wants to ride him down right now, tonight, in the blood and dust of Gaugamela. But your left wing is in trouble. Parmenian's forces have been hard-pressed, and he needs help. You turn back. Darius escapes, for now. But the empire is yours. You enter Babylon, and Babylon takes your breath away. You have seen Pella, with its mosaics and its gardens. You have seen Athens with its Parthenon and its philosophers. You have seen the cities of Egypt, ancient and mysterious. But Babylon is something else entirely. The walls are so thick that chariots can drive on top of them. The Ishtar Gate blazes with glazed blue bricks and golden dragons. The ziggurats rise like man-made mountains. The hanging gardens, if they exist, and you're not sure they do, and neither are historians, are supposedly visible from miles away. The city has canals, temples, markets, libraries. It has been a center of civilization for 2,000 years. Athenians like to call Persians barbarians, but standing in Babylon, looking at architecture that makes anything in Greece look like a child's building project, you quietly wonder who the real barbarians are. The city surrenders without a fight. The priests of Marduk come out with gifts and blessings. You enter the city in a procession that feels less like a conquest and more like a homecoming you didn't know you needed. You sacrifice to Marduk, a Babylonian god, not a Greek one, and order the rebuilding of temples that Xerxes destroyed a century and a half ago. This matters. This tells the Babylonians that you are not another Xerxes. You are not here to tear things down. You are here to restore, to rule, to become part of this world, rather than simply dominate it. Then you move to Susa, the administrative capital, and the wealth hits you like a physical force. The treasury contains 50,000 talents of coined silver. 50,000. This is more money than the entire Greek world has ever assembled in one place. There is also a store of purple dye that has maintained its color for 190 years. A luxury so extravagant it seems almost hallucinatory. You are 25 years old, and you are richer than anyone has ever been. And then there is Persepolis, the ceremonial heart of the Persian Empire, built by Darius I on a massive stone platform rising from the plain like an altar to power itself. The gate of all nations, wide enough for delegations from every subject people to pass through simultaneously. The Apadana, the great audience hall, its ceiling held up by 36 columns 65 feet tall, each carved with bulls and lions. The bas-reliefs depicting processions of Persians, Medes, Elamites, Babylonians, Egyptians, Indians, Scythians, every people of the empire, rendered in stone, bringing tribute to the King of Kings. Persepolis is not just a palace, it is a statement. This is what civilization looks like when it has 2 centuries and unlimited resources to perfect itself. You seize the treasury. 2,500 tons of gold and silver, 10,000 mules and 500 camels to carry it. This is not a metaphor for great wealth. This is literal. 10,000 mules, 500 camels. The treasure of Persepolis is so vast that it takes a small army just to move it, and then you burn it. The ancient sources disagree on why. Thais, an Athenian courtesan traveling with your army, allegedly suggests it at a drunken banquet. Revenge, she argues, for Xerxes burning the Athenian Acropolis a century and a half ago. In this version, you are drunk, your blood is hot, and you grab a torch and lead the revelers through the halls, setting fires that consume the greatest palace complex the world has ever built. Flames lick at the cedar ceilings. Smoke pours from the Apadana. The reliefs of 100 nations blacken and crack. It is glorious, terrible, and irreversible. But archaeological evidence tells a more complicated story. The fire damage is selective. Xerxes' palace was burned. Darius' palace was spared. The treasury and the Apadana, the symbols of imperial power, were targeted. The residential quarters were largely untouched. This doesn't look like a drunken accident. This looks like a calculated act of destruction, a message sent in fire. The Persian Empire is over, and this man, this Macedonian, burned its heart to prove it. You will regret it later. When you return to Persepolis months afterward, you'll look at the ruins and feel something you won't quite name, but that sits uncomfortably close to shame. The Iranians will remember this. For millennia, they will call you Alexander the Accursed. And the burning of Persepolis will be a wound in their cultural memory that never fully heals. You built cities across 3 continents. This is the one thing you destroyed, and it follows you like a shadow. But you can't undo fire, and you can't stop moving, because Darius is still alive, somewhere to the east, and as long as he lives, his claim to the throne survives, and your conquest is incomplete. You pursue him. The speed of your pursuit is staggering. 36 miles a day, across terrain that punishes horses and breaks men. You are not hunting an army. You are hunting one man, riding with a shrinking escort through the eastern provinces of his former empire, watching his own generals lose faith in him one by one. And then, in July 330 BC, Darius's own men do the thing you could never quite manage. Bessus, satrap of Bactria, and Nabazanes, a Persian nobleman, seize Darius. They stab him and leave him in a cart by the road, bleeding out in the dust, attended by no one. When your scouts find him, the great king of Persia is alone, dying, in a baggage wagon, covered in his own blood. According to one account, a Macedonian soldier gives him water, and Darius, with his last breath, thanks the man and expresses gratitude that Alexander, his enemy, treated his family with honor. You arrive too late. Darius is dead or dying when you reach the cart. And you do something that your generals do not expect. You take off your own cloak, the purple cloak of Macedonian royalty, the one you've worn through every battle, the symbol of everything you are, and you drape it over the body of your enemy. It is a gesture that transcends politics. It is tender, almost intimate, the act of one king acknowledging another. You didn't respect Darius as a warrior. He ran from you twice, and that in your world is unforgivable. But you respect his office, his suffering, his humanity. You cover him the way you would cover a fallen friend. And then you order a royal funeral, because the King of Kings deserves to be buried as a king. You also order the arrest and execution of Bessus. When they catch him, the punishment is baroque. His nose and ears are cut off in the Persian fashion for regicides, and then he is torn apart between two bent trees. You are merciful and you are savage, sometimes in the same breath, and the gap between these two impulses is widening. But here is the thing that settles over you like a chill, standing there in the dust with Darius's blood on your hands and your cloak on his body. The chase is over. The thing you've been pursuing since you crossed the Hellespont, the Persian Empire, the ultimate prize, the dream that Philip never quite finished dreaming, is yours, completely, totally. There is no more enemy. There is no more Darius. There is only you and an empire that stretches from the Adriatic to the Oxus, and the terrible echoing question that every conqueror must eventually face. Now what? The answer to now what turns out to be everything changes, and not for the better. It starts with the clothes. You begin wearing Persian clothing, not constantly, not in battle, but at court, at banquets, during audiences with Persian officials. The kandis, a richly embroidered robe with wide sleeves. The diadem, a blue and white striped headband that is the mark of Persian royalty. You adopt elements of Persian court ceremony. You appoint Persian satraps to govern Persian provinces. You invite Persian nobles into your inner circle. To you, this makes perfect sense. You are not just the king of Macedonia anymore. You are the lord of Asia. You rule over millions of Persian, and ruling them effectively means speaking their language, literally and figuratively. You can't govern the largest empire in history wearing a Macedonian chlamys and demanding that everyone adopt Greek customs. Cultural synthesis, you believe, is the path to a stable, lasting empire. Greek and Persian civilization united under one crown, your crown. To your Macedonian officers, this is betrayal. They didn't march 3,000 miles to watch their king dress up like the enemy. They didn't leave their families, their farms, their homeland to bow down to the man who conquered Persia, the way Persians bow down. And this is where it gets truly contentious, because you don't just wear the clothes. You demand proskynesis. Proskynesis is the Persian custom of prostration, bowing low, sometimes touching or kissing the ground in the presence of the king. In Persia, it's a gesture of respect, not worship. Persians perform proskynesis for any social superior. But Greeks don't see it that way. In Greek culture, you only prostrate yourself before a god. When you demand that your Macedonian officers perform proskynesis, you are, in their eyes, demanding that they worship you. You are asking free Greek men to act as though their king is divine. Some comply, most seethe. Callisthenes refuses publicly. He is your court historian, a philosopher, Aristotle's great-nephew, a man of letters and principles who has been documenting your conquests with intellectual rigor and genuine admiration. He has praised you in writing. He has helped craft the narrative of your divinity for public consumption. But when you ask him to bow, he draws a line. He stands in front of the assembled court and refuses to perform proskynesis, arguing eloquently that it is beneath the dignity of a free Greek. You do not forgive this. Callisthenes will be arrested within months, implicated, possibly falsely, in a conspiracy called the Page's Plot, in which a group of young royal attendants allegedly plan to murder you in your sleep. The details are murky and the evidence is thin, and historians have argued for centuries about whether Callisthenes was genuinely involved or whether his arrest was your revenge for his public defiance. Either way, the result is the same. Callisthenes dies in captivity, executed or wasted by disease while chained in a cart that follows your army through Central Asia. The philosopher who chronicled your glory dies in chains. Aristotle, when he hears the news, will reportedly say nothing. But the silence between a teacher and a former student has never been louder. You are moving deeper into Central Asia now. Bactria, Sogdia, the wild mountainous borderlands of the former Persian Empire, where the terrain is hostile, the tribes are fierce, and the fighting is not the grand set-piece battles of Gaugamela and Issus, but a brutal, grinding guerrilla war against enemies who know the landscape and have no intention of standing still long enough for your phalanx to pin them. This is the campaign that ages you. Not physically, not yet, though the wounds are accumulating, psychologically. The Central Asian campaign is a war without clear victories, without clean endings. You take a fortress, and the enemy retreats into the mountains. You pacify a valley, and it revolts the moment you march on. You are fighting shadows, and shadows don't surrender. It's here, in the middle of this grinding campaign, that you encounter the Sogdian Rock. The Sogdian Rock is a fortress perched on top of a sheer cliff. The defenders are confident, so confident that when you demand their surrender, they laugh and tell you that you'd need soldiers with wings to take this position. They are technically correct. The cliff is almost vertical. No conventional assault can reach the top. You offer massive rewards, 12 talents of gold, to any volunteer who can climb the face. 300 men step forward. They use tent pegs and flax ropes as improvised climbing tools. 30 of them fall to their deaths on the rocks below. But the rest, 270 men, crawling up a cliff face in the dark, with nothing but iron stakes and determination, reach the top. At dawn, when the defenders look up and see Macedonian soldiers above them, waving from the summit, they believe you actually do have men with wings. They surrender. Among the captives is a young woman named Roxana. She is, according to the sources, extraordinarily beautiful. You fall in love with her. Or at least, you fall in something. And whether it is love or strategy, or loneliness or some combination of all three, you marry her. The wedding is genuine. You slice a loaf of bread with your sword, and you share it with her. And it is one of the few truly gentle moments in the second half of your life. Roxana will be pregnant with your only legitimate child when you die. She will not know that the boy she carries will grow up to be murdered before he ever sits on the throne his father built. But the Sogdian Rock, for all its drama, is not the defining event of this period. The defining event happens at a banquet in Maracanda, modern-day Samarkand, and it will haunt you for the rest of your life. The wine flows. It always flows. Macedonians don't do dry banquets, and you, in particular, have been drinking more heavily as the campaign wears on. The conversation turns, as it often does at these gatherings, to your achievements. Court flatterers compare your exploits to those of Heracles and Dionysus. Singers perform songs praising your victories, and, inevitably, diminishing your father's legacy to make yours shine brighter. Clytus the Black listens to this, and something in him breaks. Clytus, the man who saved your life at the Granicus, the man who cut the sword arm off the Persian who was about to kill you. Clytus, who has served you faithfully through 4 years of campaigning, who has earned his rank and his scars, who remembers you as a boy and not a god. Clytus stands up and starts to speak, and what he says is the truth, which is why it is so dangerous. He defends your father. He reminds the room that Philip built the army you command. He points out that your Macedonian soldiers, the men who actually fight and die and march and bleed, are being sidelined in favor of Persian courtiers and foreign generals. He criticizes your adoption of Persian customs. He suggests, not subtly, that you have forgotten where you came from. You tell him to stop. He doesn't stop. The wine is talking now, in both of you, and the argument escalates from debate to confrontation to something visceral and ugly. Officers try to intervene. They physically restrain Clytus and push him out of the room. But he breaks free. He comes back in. He shouts a line from Euripides at you, something about kings taking credit for the labor of others, and it lands like a slap across the face. You grab a spear. The accounts vary on the details, whether it was a sarissa or a shorter javelin, whether you grabbed it from a guard or from a rack on the wall. But the result is not ambiguous. You drive the spear through the chest of the man who saved your life. Clytus dies instantly, and then the silence, the terrible, suffocating silence of a room full of men who have just watched their king murder his friend. The spear is still in your hand. Clytus is on the floor. The wine stains on his clothing mix with the blood. And you look down at what you've done, and something in you shatters. You try to turn the spear on yourself. Officers tackle you. They wrestle the weapon away. You collapse. You begin to scream, not in anger, but in grief, in horror, in the sudden, devastating clarity of a man who has just crossed a line he cannot uncross. You isolate yourself for 3 days. You refuse food. You refuse comfort. You call out Clytus's name. You weep. You are, by every account, genuinely destroyed by what you've done. The army, in an act of loyalty that doubles as institutional self-preservation, posthumously convicts Clytus of treason. They declare that his death was justified, a consequence of his insubordination, not your rage. This is a fiction. Everyone knows it's a fiction. But it's a fiction that lets the world keep turning, and so everyone agrees to believe it. But you know that you killed the man who saved your life. You know that you did it drunk in a rage over words. You know that the boy from Pella, the one who tamed horses and memorized Homer and debated philosophy under plane trees at Mieza, would not recognize the man who held that spear. And you know, in the deepest and most private chamber of your heart, that something has gone wrong, not with the campaign, not with the empire, with you. The page's conspiracy follows. A group of young Macedonian nobles, Boys, really, royal pages who serve as your personal attendants. Plot to kill you in your sleep. The conspiracy is discovered. The boys are executed. Callisthenes is implicated and arrested. The message is clear. The people closest to you are beginning to wonder if you've become something they need to protect themselves from. You marry Roxana. You push deeper into Central Asia. You found more cities, fight more battles, add more territory to the empire that no single person can hold. But the light has changed. The boundless confidence of the first years, the young king who charged the Granicus and joked at Gordium and showed mercy to Darius's family, is dimming. In its place is something harder, colder, more desperate. You are the most powerful person alive. You have more territory than any human being has ever controlled. You have gold, soldiers, wives, priests who call you divine. And standing over Cletus's body in that banquet hall in Maracanda, you are more alone than you have ever been. Because here's the thing about killing the people who tell you the truth. Once they're gone, no one else dares to try. Alexander's mind was a storm that never quite settled. He had the world, but he couldn't find the off switch. For many of us, the hardest battle isn't the day itself. It's the moment we lay our heads down and our thoughts start to race like a cavalry charge. If your mind feels like Alexander's, restless and unable to find peace, Brain.fm can help you lower the volume. Their sleep tracks are scientifically designed to help your brainwaves transition from the high-frequency chatter of the day into the deep, restorative delta waves of sleep. It's not just pretty sound. It's a rhythmic guide that tells your nervous system it's safe to let go. You don't have to carry the weight of your empire into the night. Check out the link below to try it for yourself and let your mind finally find its rest. You are moving east, always east, through mountain passes where the air thins and your lungs burn and the horses slip on ice, through valleys where the rivers run so cold they numb your bones within seconds, through landscapes that no Greek has ever seen, and that your cartographers are mapping in real time, sketching coastlines and river systems onto papyrus as you march, creating a picture of the world that is expanding with every step you take. You are crossing the Hindu Kush. These mountains are savage. 20,000 feet of rock and ice and wind that cuts through wool and leather and bronze as though they aren't there. Your army, hardened veterans who have crossed deserts and forded rivers and smashed through the finest armies on earth, struggles. Men collapse from altitude sickness, their lips blue, their fingers numb, their breath coming in short, labored gasps that produce clouds of vapor in the frozen air. Pack animals stumble and fall into ravines, taking supplies with them. At night, the cold is so intense that fires barely produce heat, and men sleep pressed together under piles of cloaks and horse blankets, shivering through the darkness. You push through. Because you always push through. Because there is a territory beyond these mountains that no conqueror has ever claimed, and the hunger in you, the hunger that Philip identified when you were 10 years old, the hunger that Aristotle tried to channel and Hephaestion learned to live with, and Parmenion keeps warning you about, will not let you stop. India, or rather the northwestern edge of what the Greeks call India, which is actually the Punjab region of modern Pakistan. To you, this is the end of the world. Beyond here, your philosophers say, lies the great outer ocean, the edge of the disk of the earth, where the waters pour off into infinity. Whether you believe this literally is unclear. What is clear is that you want to see it. You want to stand at the edge and look out and know that there is nowhere left to go. But first, you have to get through King Porus. Porus rules a kingdom on the far side of the Hydaspes River, the Jhelum in modern terms, and he has no intention of surrendering, negotiating or running. Unlike Darius, Porus is a warrior king in the mold of your own father. He is physically enormous. The ancient sources describe him as nearly 7 feet tall, which may be exaggerated but captures the impression he makes. He commands a large army, a disciplined cavalry, and 200 war elephants. War elephants. You have encountered elephants before. Darius had 15 at Gaugamela, and they were mostly irrelevant, deployed as a curiosity rather than a weapon. But Porus's elephants are different. These are trained war elephants, Indian elephants, larger and more aggressive than their African cousins, ridden by experienced mahouts who control them with hooks and commands. They are armored with leather and metal plates. They carry archers and javelin throwers in wooden towers on their backs. And when they charge, the ground shakes. Your horses are terrified of them. This is a problem. The companion cavalry, the decisive strike force that has won every battle of your career, cannot function if the horses panic at the sight and smell of elephants. You need a different approach. The Hydaspes River is swollen with monsoon rain. It is wide, fast, and deadly. Porus has positioned his army on the far bank, with the elephants in the center of his line, knowing that your cavalry cannot cross in their presence. He is daring you to try. You spend weeks in camp on your side of the river, making obvious preparations for a crossing and then not crossing. Night after night, you march troops up and down the bank, lighting fires, blowing trumpets, creating the impression that the crossing is imminent. Porus responds by marching his own forces to match your movements. After weeks of this, Porus's army stops reacting. They've been false alarmed so many times that the movement of your troops no longer triggers a response. This is exactly what you want. On a night of driving rain and crashing thunder, chosen specifically because the storm will cover the sound of your crossing, you take a picked force of cavalry and infantry 18 miles upstream to a bend in the river screened by a wooded island. The crossing is treacherous. The water is chest-high on the horses. The current is ferocious. Men and animals are swept downstream. But you make it across, on the far bank, at dawn, with a striking force that Porus does not know is there. Porus learns of the crossing too late. He sends his son with a cavalry detachment to intercept you. You defeat them. The young prince is killed. And then you advance on Porus's main army, which is still facing your main camp across the river, now realizing that the real danger is behind them. The Battle of the Hydaspes is unlike anything you've fought before. Porus deploys his elephants in a line across the center, with infantry between them and cavalry on the wings. The elephants are his anchor, and they are terrifying. Your infantry can't close with the elephant line without being trampled, gored, or grabbed by trunks and hurled to the ground. Your cavalry won't go near them. The standard Macedonian playbook, pin with phalanx, strike with cavalry. doesn't work when the center is a wall of living armor. You adapt. You deploy your mounted archers to pepper the elephants with arrows, targeting the mahouts and the animals' unarmored legs and trunks. The elephants, wounded and maddened, begin to panic. Some turn and stampede back through their own lines, crushing Porus's infantry. You send your cavalry around the flanks, avoiding the elephants entirely, and attack Porus's cavalry from the sides. With his cavalry driven off, Porus's infantry is exposed. The battle is brutal and long, the longest and hardest fought of your career. The ground turns to mud churned by elephant feet and monsoon rain and blood. Your phalanx advances into gaps where elephants have been driven back, locking shields and pushing forward with sarissas. The fighting is close, confused and desperate in a way that Gaugamela never was. This is not a rout. This is a genuine contest between two armies, two kings, two civilization, neither of which is willing to break. Porus fights until his army is shattered. He is wounded. Multiple sources describe him taking arrow and javelin wounds, but continuing to fight from the back of his largest elephant, directing his troops even as his lines collapse around him. When he finally accepts that the battle is lost, he doesn't run. He doesn't negotiate from a position of pleading. He rides out to meet you, still mounted on his elephant, still bleeding, still every inch a king. You ask him how he wishes to be treated. Like a king, he says. And you, the man who demanded proskynesis and killed Clytus and burned Persepolis, hear something in those words that reaches a part of you that hasn't been reached in a long time. You restore Porus to his kingdom. You expand his territory. You treat him not as a subject but as an ally, because you recognize something in him that you respect: courage, dignity, and the refusal to be diminished. He is, in a sense, the enemy you've always wanted. Not a Darius who runs, a king who fights, but the battle costs you something you cannot replace. Bucephalus is dead. Whether he dies in the battle itself or shortly after from wounds and exhaustion, the sources disagree. But the result is the same. The great black horse, the one you tamed as a boy by turning him toward the sun, the one who carried you through the Granicus, and Issus and Gaugamela, the one constant companion in a life that has grown increasingly chaotic and violent and lonely, is gone. You found a city on the spot, Bucephala, named for a horse. You have named over 20 cities after yourself. You name this one after the only creature who never judged you, never feared you, never asked anything of you except to run. And if there is a moment in your story where the weight of everything you've lost catches up with you, not the political losses, not the strategic setbacks, but the personal, private, quiet losses that accumulate like sand in an hourglass, this might be it. A man kneeling beside a dead horse on a muddy riverbank in India, in the rain, in a country he has no reason to be in, except that he doesn't know how to stop. You want to go further. Of course you do. Beyond Porus's kingdom lies the Ganges plain, and beyond that, you've been told, the outer ocean, the edge of the world, the place where the known gives way to the unknowable. Your scouts bring reports of a massive kingdom to the east, the Nanda Empire, with an army of 200,000 infantry, 80,000 cavalry, and 6,000 war elephants. The numbers are probably exaggerated. They don't need to be accurate to be terrifying. You present your case to the army. You've done this before. Stood in front of your men and called them forward with the force of your charisma, your track record, your sheer magnetic certainty that what lies ahead is glory. It has always worked. From Granicus to Gaugamela to the Hindu Kush. Your men have followed you because you are Alexander, and Alexander does not lose, and the reward for following Alexander is wealth and fame, and the knowledge that you were part of something that the world will never forget. This time, it doesn't work. Your men refuse. They are tired. They are homesick. They have been on campaign for 8 years. Many of them haven't seen Macedonia in a decade. They have marched over 17,000 miles. They have crossed deserts, mountains, rivers, and the accumulated body count of 6 civilizations. Their boots are worn through. Their cloaks are rags. Their armor is dented, repaired, dented again. Some of them joined this army as teenagers and are now approaching middle age. They have watched friends die in every conceivable way, by sword, by arrow, by spear, by disease, by drowning, by heat stroke, by snake bite, by elephant. And now you want them to march against an army with 6,000 elephants? No. The answer, for the first time in your life, from the army that has followed you across the known world, is no. Your General Coenus speaks for the men. He is respectful. He is firm. He points out gently but unmistakably that the soldiers want to go home. They want to see their families. They want to spend their gold. They want to rest. You retreat to your tent. You stay there for 3 days, the way Achilles sulked in his tent when Agamemnon offended him. And you know the parallel, because you always know the Homeric parallel, because the Iliad is still under your pillow, and you are still playing out the myth you chose as a boy in a garden. You wait for the army to change its mind. The army does not change its mind. On the 3rd day, you emerge and announce that you will turn back. You perform sacrifices. The omens, conveniently, are unfavorable for continuing east. You are saving face, and everyone knows it, and nobody says so, because you are still the king, and the army's loyalty has not broken. It has merely found its limit. But something in you has broken. Not visibly, not dramatically. You don't rage or threaten or punish. But the man who walks out of that tent is different from the man who walked in. The army said no. The one thing you cannot tolerate, the one outcome you have no mechanism for processing, someone telling you that this is far enough, that the world does have an edge, and you have reached it. The return begins south, down the Hydaspes and the Indus, and it is not a peaceful retreat. You fight your way down the river system, engaging every tribe and city that refuses to submit, and you fight with a ferocity that goes beyond strategy. This is personal now. Every battle on the return journey has the feel of a man punching walls. And then comes the Mali siege. You remember this. You saw it in the cold open, the wall, the jump, the arrow through your lung. Now you understand how you got there. Your army is besieging a city of the Mali people, and the assault is taking too long. Ladders are going up slowly. Your soldiers are hesitating. And you cannot hesitate. You have never hesitated. It is not in the architecture of who you are. Grab a ladder, scale the wall, and stand on top of it, exposed, silhouetted against the Indian sky, a perfect target. 2 of your bodyguards follow you up. A third ladder breaks under the weight of the men crowding onto it. And you, rather than climb back down, jump. Forward, into the city, alone. You already know what happens. The arrow, the lung, the blood, your men breaching the wall in a frenzy of grief and rage. The massacre that follows. You, carried out on your shield like a dead Homeric hero. Except you are not dead. Not yet. But you will never be the same. The arrow wound in your lung will never fully heal. You will have difficulty breathing for the rest of your life. Your body, which has already accumulated a fractured skull, a shoulder wound from Gaza, a thigh wound from a sword, an ankle wound from a Sogdian arrow, a neck wound from a sling stone, and the psychological damage of years of sustained combat, is finally presenting the bill. You are 30 years old, and your body is that of a man twice your age. Your soldiers, when they see you alive, weep with relief, and then they beg you, openly and without shame, to stop. Stop leading from the front. Stop being the first man on the wall. Stop risking yourself as though your life is expendable, when it is the only thing holding this entire enterprise together. They love you. That's why they're begging. And you hear them. You nod. You reassure them. But you and they both know that you won't stop, because the spear and the leap are who you are. They are what make you Alexander, and taking them away would leave a man you don't know how to be. The road home kills more of your men than all the battles combined. You have decided, and the reasons are debated and debatable, to march a significant portion of your army through the Gedrosian Desert. This is the coastal desert of Baluchistan, in modern Pakistan and Iran, a landscape of sand, rock, and heat so extreme that local guides warn you it's impassable for a large force. Queen Semiramis of Babylon allegedly tried it with a great army, and emerged with only 20 survivors. Cyrus the Great, founder of the Persian Empire, supposedly lost his entire army here. You know these stories. You march anyway. Because you are Alexander, and you do not accept that something is impossible simply because everyone else has failed at it. Or perhaps because after the hyphasis, after the army's refusal, after the Mali arrow, something in you has shifted from ambition to something darker. A need to suffer, to punish, to prove something, though what you're proving and to whom is no longer entirely clear. The Gedrosian March begins in October 325 BC. You lead 87,000 infantry, 18,000 cavalry, and 52,000 camp followers, families, servants, merchants, all the human infrastructure that trails behind a conquering army. The total force is over 150,000 people. The desert is everything the warnings promised, and worse. The heat is relentless. Temperatures rarely drop below 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and during the day, the sand radiates heat upward like an oven. There is almost no water. The few wells and springs that exist are often fouled with salt or sand, and the intervals between them are measured in days, not hours. Your army marches at night to avoid the worst of the heat, but even at night, the air is thick and stifling, and the sand gets into everything. eyes, wounds, water skins, the joints of armor. Men begin dying within the first week. Thirst kills first. Soldiers stagger off the line of march, hallucinating, their tongues swollen, their lips cracked and bleeding. Some drink seawater and go mad. Others drink from their own water skins too early and have nothing for the days that follow. The pack animals die faster than the men, mules and horses collapsing in the heat, their carcasses left where they fall, marking the army's path like a trail of bone and leather. Then the flash flood. A monsoon storm, invisible miles away in the mountains, sends a wall of water through a wadi where your camp followers have settled for the night. The flood hits without warning, in the darkness, sweeping away women, children, servants, supplies. People drown in the middle of a desert. The screaming is audible for miles. By morning, the wadi is empty, the water already absorbed back into the sand, and the dead are scattered across the gravel flat like discarded things. You lose 15,000 men in the Gedrosian desert. 15,000. More than died in all your battles put together. Nearly half your fighting force destroyed not by an enemy army, but by geography, heat, and the decision of one man to march through terrain that the earth itself was trying to tell him was impassable. This is your greatest failure. Greater than the burning of Persepolis. Greater than the killing of Cletus. Greater than any of the moral compromises you've made along the way. Those were sins of excess. Too much rage, too much wine, too much fire. This is a sin of will. You led 150,000 people into a desert because you believed that your will could overcome the physical world, and the physical world disagreed, and the physical world won. You emerge from the Gedrosian on the other side, reduced, harrowed, changed. And what follows is not the triumphant return of a conqueror, but the stumbling revel of a man who has lost his way. You march through the province of Carmania, dressed as Dionysus. Your officers and soldiers join you in a drunken procession that lasts for days, a festival of wine and music and relief and collective denial about what just happened in the desert. You are reenacting the mythical return of Dionysus from India, because even your breakdowns have a mythological reference. You arrive back in the Western Empire, and the problems are waiting for you like debts come due. While you were in India and dying in the desert, your satraps and governors have been running their provinces with varying degrees of competence and loyalty. Some have embezzled funds. Others have raised private armies. Several have committed atrocities against local populations. You deal with them swiftly and harshly. Trials, executions, replacements. But the message is clear. Your empire only functions when you are personally present. And you cannot be personally present everywhere. And then you try to build the future, the mass wedding at Susa. February 324 BC. It is the largest wedding ceremony in the history of the ancient world, and it is your vision made flesh. 10,000 of your soldiers marry Persian women. 80 of your senior officers marry daughters of Persian and Median nobles. You yourself marry 2 more wives, Statera, the daughter of Darius III, and Parysatis, the daughter of the previous Persian king. The weddings are conducted in Persian fashion. You sit on thrones, you exchange gifts. The ceremonies last for 5 days with feasts, entertainment, and athletics. This is not a party. This is a policy statement. You are declaring, in the most dramatic and irreversible way possible, that the future of your empire is not Greek. It is not Persian. It is something new. A fusion of civilizations, a hybrid culture that takes the best of both worlds and creates something that has never existed before. Greek philosophy and Persian administration, Macedonian military discipline and Persian imperial grandeur. Your children will be mixed. Your court will be mixed. Your army will be mixed. The world, as you see it, is not meant to be divided into conquerors and conquered. It is meant to be united. Your Macedonians see it differently. They see betrayal. They see their king, who they followed across the known world, who they bled for and fought for and watched their friends die for, choosing Persians over them. When you announce plans to discharge your oldest veterans, the men who have served since Philip's time, the grey-bearded sarissa carriers who remember the world before you, and replace them with 30,000 Persian youths trained in Macedonian warfare, the army mutinies. The mutiny at Opis. Your entire army, every Macedonian soldier under your command, refuses to obey. They stand in the camp and shout at you. They tell you to go fight your wars with your Persian favorites. They tell you to dismiss them all, not just the veterans. The anger is real and deep, and it comes from a place of genuine hurt. These men love you, and they feel abandoned. You confront them. You stand in front of the army, alone, unarmed, without bodyguards, and you deliver a speech that Arian records as one of the most powerful pieces of military rhetoric in history. You remind them of what Philip gave them: dignity, cloaks instead of sheepskins, civilization instead of tribal squalor. You remind them of what you gave them: the Persian Empire, the wealth of Susa and Persepolis, the glory that will echo for centuries. And then you turn and walk back to your tent. You lock yourself inside. You refuse to see any Macedonian soldier. Instead, you begin appointing Persians to command positions. The army holds out for 3 days. Then they break. They come to your tent weeping, begging for reconciliation. You emerge. You embrace them. A massive feast follows. 9,000 men, Macedonians and Persians sitting together, drinking from the same cups, and you stand and offer a prayer for harmony between the two peoples. It is, on its surface, a triumph, a reconciliation, a beautiful moment. But underneath, the cracks are everywhere. You are holding this empire together by force of personality, and force of personality is not a system of government. It is a man. And men, as you are beginning to discover, have limits. Autumn, 324 BC, Ecbatana. The ancient Median capital, high in the mountains, cool after the heat of the lowlands. You are here with the army, resting, planning the next campaign, because there is always a next campaign. Arabia, perhaps? Or the Western Mediterranean, Carthage, Italy. You never stop planning. Hephaestion is sick. It starts with a fever. Nothing unusual. Fevers are constant on campaign, as common as dust and blisters. His doctor, Glaucius, treats him and leaves instructions. Hephaestion feels better. Against orders, he attends the athletic games. He eats a full meal, boiled fowl, and a large quantity of wine. The fever returns, worse than before. 7 days later, Hephaestion is dead. The details of what happens next are recorded by every major source, and every one of them conveys the same thing. You go mad with grief. You throw yourself on the body and lie there for hours weeping. Officers have to physically pull you away. You cut your hair, the ancient Greek sign of mourning, and order the manes of all the horses and mules in the army cut as well. You have the doctor, Glaucius, crucified. You order the battlements of Ecbatana torn down so that the city itself appears to be in mourning. You refuse food, you refuse comfort, you refuse to see anyone. You commission a funeral pyre for Hephaestion in Babylon that will cost 10,000 talents, an astronomical sum, enough to fund a war. The pyre is designed as a massive ziggurat-like structure, decorated with golden eagles, ships' prows, lions, and weapons, rising over 200 feet in height. It is the most expensive funeral in the ancient world. And you leave the position of Chiliarch, Hephaestion's title, the second most powerful office in the empire, permanently unfilled. No one will replace him. No one can replace him. The empty chair at your council table becomes a monument to absence, a daily reminder that the one person who knew you, really knew you, the way he did at Mieta, under the plane trees, before any of this happened, is gone. Historians have debated the nature of your relationship with Hephaestion for millennia. Lovers? Brothers in arms? Something that doesn't have a modern name? The answer matters less than the grief. The grief is undeniable, oceanic, the kind of grief that breaks a person open and rearranges what's inside. You loved him. However you loved him completely. And now he's dead, and the world has gotten smaller in a way that all the conquering in history cannot reverse. You march to Babylon. Priests meet you at the gates and warn you not to enter the city. The omens are terrible, they say. Catastrophe awaits. You enter anyway, because you are Alexander, and you have never in your life heeded a warning. The days in Babylon are strange. You throw yourself into planning. The Arabian campaign, fleet construction, canal projects, infrastructure for the empire you're trying to build. You receive ambassadors from across the Mediterranean. You sacrifice at temples. You attend banquets. And you drink. You have always drunk heavily. It's the Macedonian way, the unmixed wine, the long symposia that stretch until dawn. But in Babylon, the drinking escalates. There are banquets that last all day and into the night. Drinking contests where men compete to consume the most wine. One such contest, according to one ancient account, killed the winner and several participants from alcohol poisoning. On the evening of May the 29th, 323 BC, you attend a banquet hosted by a friend named Medius of Larissa. You drink late into the night. The next morning, you have a fever. It does not break. Over the next 10 days, your condition deteriorates in a progression that medical historians have analyzed and reanalyzed for centuries. The fever spikes. You develop chills. You continue to issue orders, hold audiences, make offerings at the temples. You are carried on a litter to the daily sacrifices because you can no longer walk. You discuss fleet preparations with your admirals. You are Alexander. You do not stop working because you are dying, but you are dying. By day 7, you can no longer speak. By day 8, the fever is constant and severe. By day 9, you are barely conscious. Your generals gather outside your room in a vigil that is part death watch, part power struggle, because everyone in that hallway knows that the moment you die, the empire you built will begin to tear itself apart. On the 9th or 10th day, your soldiers demand to see you. Not the generals, not the officers, the rank and file, the men who carried sarissas across the desert, who held the line at Gaugamela, who built the causeway at Tyre, who followed you over the wall at Mali. They file past your bed, one by one, thousands of them, in a procession that takes hours. You cannot speak, you can barely move. But as each man passes, you lift your head, just slightly, and you meet their eyes, one by one. Every soldier who comes through the door receives that look. What do they see? What do you see? A dying king looking at the men who made him. Soldiers saying goodbye to the man who made them. 23 centuries later, it is still one of the most heartbreaking images in the literature of power and loss. When asked who should inherit your empire, you whisper. Or perhaps you don't whisper. Perhaps you've already lost your voice entirely. And this is one of those things that gets attributed to you after the fact because someone needed an answer. You whisper, to the strongest. The Greek word is kratistos. It could mean to the strongest. It could mean to the best. It could mean to Craterus, your general, whose name sounds similar. The ambiguity is probably unintentional. It is also, in retrospect, perfectly fitting. Your entire life has been a contest between strength and excellence, between force and virtue, between what you could take and what you deserved. Of course, your last word is ambiguous. On June 10th or 11th, 323 BC, at approximately 6 in the evening, in a room in Babylon that smells of incense and fever, and the accumulated weight of too many years lived too fast, you die. You are 32 years old, and that's how your story ends. Not on a battlefield, not on a throne, not at the edge of the world you spent your whole life trying to reach. In a bed. In a city that isn't yours, with a fever that no physician could break, and a question that no general could answer. You were born in a palace with floor mosaics of gods and lions. You grew up walking on art. Your mother whispered that you were divine, and your father wept when you tamed a horse that no one else could ride, and he told you, when you were barely old enough to hold the reins, that Macedonia was too small for you. He was right. Macedonia was too small. So was Greece. So was Persia. So was Egypt and Babylon and the Sogdian Rock and the banks of the Hydaspes. The world kept getting bigger, and you kept crossing it, and it kept not being enough. And now it's over, and the world is exactly the same size it always was. You just ran out of time to measure it. You were 20 when you became king, 25 when you broke the Persian Empire on a dusty plain in Iraq, 30 when an arrow went through your lung and you still got up, 32 when the fever took you and you couldn't get up anymore. Your body will be placed in a golden sarcophagus and hijacked by Ptolemy, your old classmate from Mieza, who will take it to Alexandria, the city you founded, the city you never saw completed, and display it like a relic. Centuries later, Julius Caesar will visit your tomb and weep. Augustus will place a golden crown on your mummified head and accidentally break off your nose, which is both poignant and deeply funny in a way you would have appreciated. Eventually, the tomb will be lost. No one knows where your body is now, the most famous conqueror in history, and his grave is a mystery. Your generals will tear your empire apart within a generation. The wars of the Diadochi, the successors, will rage for decades. Ptolemy takes Egypt, Seleucus takes Persia, Cassander takes Macedonia. Yes, Cassander. The boy from Mieza, whose face made you grab him by the hair and slam his head against a wall. He becomes king of your homeland. He murders your mother. He murders your wife, Roxana. He murders your son, Alexander IV, the child you never met, born after you died, killed before he was old enough to know what was taken from him. But tonight, none of that has happened yet. Tonight, for a few hours, you lived it. You felt the sun on the marble at Pella, and the wind in your face on the back of a black horse. You heard Aristotle's voice in a garden, and the thunder of cavalry at Gaugamela. You tasted the dust of the Gedrosian desert, and the wine at the feast where everything went wrong. You held a spear, and a book, and a dying horse, and the hand of a friend who was gone too soon. You conquered the known world, and the known world conquered you right back. Good night, Nightling.